Peace. I just wanted to briefly talk about that recent death of Walter Scott at the hands of police officer Michael Slager down in South Carolina. And some of the things that I'm seeing in the press right now to kind of give those of you some insight into what to pay attention to and also to watch for and not to invest in as well. First and foremost, anytime you see an article or a story that is in the national or international press, it is controlled by the national or international press. It is their narrative. So whatever you see implicit or that is implied in that or subtly being communicated to you is important, and what is explicitly or directly being told to you is important to pay attention to. It is their narrative, so they're creating an atmosphere or an environment to produce a certain result around this issue. First and foremost, one of the things in that narrative that has been put out in the press is how Mayor Sumney hastily did a press conference and announced that the officer will be charged with murder. They used hastily specifically because later on down the line they're covering their tracks just in case this officer is not convicted of murder. They know who to blame because he hastily put out this press conference, and maybe he should have charged him with something different that the officer could have been convicted of. See the same scenario that happened down there in Ferguson. That's the first thing to pay attention to. They're constantly putting out this message that the mayor hastily did a press conference. Secondly, it's a charge of murder. It's not a conviction. So don't get your hopes up. Don't invest your prayers. Don't get all emotionally invested in the outcome of a criminal injustice system that has historically empowered people like Officer Michael Slager to use lethal force against people in our communities since we've been in this country. So don't invest in that. The third thing to keep in mind is that the media is consistently emphasizing Walter Scott's age, 50 years old, that he's middle-aged. One of the other things that you see that is linked to this story is how Boeing came and built a manufacturing company in the area that he lives in to help that community bounce back from the economic depression that it was going through. So what does that have to do with anything? First of all, Boeing is a high-tech manufacturing company that specializes in aircraft parts. So even though it's a manufacturing plant, anybody just can't work there. You have to have a certain level of experience, education, and skill sets in order to work in a high-tech manufacturing environment, which also implies that at 50 years old, what was Walter Scott doing for an income? What was his sense of employment? Was he employed at Boeing? And was he one of those 7,550 people who were employed there? So that's one of the things that you see in this national press as well. You see the emphasis on the mayor hastily putting out a press conference. You see Walter Scott's age being emphasized, and then you hear this story about Boeing coming in and saving the community. All of this tells you that the next stories that you're going to start seeing is how you see middle-aged people throughout America being squeezed out of the workforce because of the technological age that we're living in. And because they may not be skilled or they don't have the education or the experience, it makes them more prone to not only crime, but it makes them prone to depression as well as the unemployment that we see in a lot of our communities. And that is also going to be one of the narratives that you're going to see starting to come out as well, because it's going to justify the reason that the so-called officer approached him to begin with. And it's going to be some economic component there, because they're already telling you this by implying that Boeing built this high-tech manufacturing company and employed all of these thousands of people, but you got this middle-aged man that may be underskilled or underemployed, which AKA may have led him to some negligence on his part in regards to taking care of certain responsibilities, as well as him being underemployed or underskilled. One of the things that also comes to mind is when we see incidents like this continue to happen, It's going to take more than cultural sensitivity training for police officers. It's going to take more than changing policies on a state and local level that affect law enforcement. It's going to take more than being able to get more of our people on the police force to be present in our own communities. We're going to have more of an ability to control our own communities. We got to have more community control so that we can care for, protect, and police ourselves. Some of these law enforcement agencies that are occupying forces in our communities are the same law enforcement agencies that protect and serve other communities. And the only way for us to really have true control over what is going in and coming out of our communities is to control it ourselves and not to allow an occupying force to be there. So this was inspiring, it was empowering, it was educating for those of you who wanted to get some perspective on not only what you are looking at, but what you are going to see. Pay attention to the stories that are about to come out in regards to middle-aged people being squeezed out of the workforce because of the highly technological age that we're dealing with, and how that not only increases unemployment, but it also increases depression, and it makes a lot of middle-aged people more prone to criminality. Check it out.